Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sanatana Gosvami Prabhupada, who is understood to have been in Krishna Lila, the gopi named as Rati Manjari, otherwise known as Lavanga Manjari, who was very dear to Rupa Manjari. And Sanatana Goswami is one of the most famous names in Gauriya Vaishnava history. He was respected even by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who personally instructed him in the science of Krishna consciousness, and who, under the direction of Lord Chaitanya, wrote several highly important books. His literary contribution to the Gauriya Vaishnava Sampradaya is only paralleled by that of Rupa Goswami Prabhupada and Jiva Goswami. We'll go on to his books later. So Sanatana Goswami was the son of, his father's name was Kumaradev. Apparently, it's not sure, but it seems they were born in an area corresponding to the Jeshore district of modern Bangladesh. Their family lineage was of Karnataka or South Indian Brahmanas. Kumaradev had many children. The eldest son was later to become known as Sanatana Goswami. The second son was Rupa Goswami. And the last son was Anupam. Their last son was Anupam. Their names previously, before they became known as Rupa and Sanatana, from their home life are not known. They're unknown, yes. From their childhood, Sanatana, Rupa and Anupam were absorbed in Krishna consciousness. They used to play in the forests surrounding their home, remembering Vrindavan. They used to hear about the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in nearby Navadvip, and they were very keen to have his darshan. But for one reason or another, they didn't get to see him at that time. When Sanatana was still a youth, he had a dream in which he saw a brahmana giving him Srimad Bhagavatam. And he felt such ecstasy that he woke up. But then he saw there was no brahmana and no Bhagavatam, so he felt disappointed. But the next morning, after he had taken bath, he was just about to start his daily worship. A brahmana, who he'd never seen this person before, he arrived on the spot and gave him Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, of course, due to the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, now receiving a Srimad Bhagavatam is not such an unusual thing. But in those days, books were not such a common thing. To get a book, someone would have to write it out by hand. So a gift of a book was a very great gift. It would take, such a big book would take many weeks to write out. So anyway, the Brahmana gave the Bhagavatam to Sanatana Goswami and told him, take this Srimad Bhagavatam, always study it, and all perfection will be yours. So he said that and went away. So Sanatana Goswami was extremely happy to receive this. And from that day on, he particularly studied the Srimad Bhagavatam, leaving aside other scriptures, understanding that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all scriptures. In his Krishna Lila Stava, Sanatana Goswami has written, Madeka bandho mat sangin mad guru man mahadhana mad nistarak mad bhagya madananda namostute. Oh, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are my only friend, you are my only company. You are my guru and the great treasure of my life. You are my savior and my good fortune. You are my pleasure. I offer my obeisances unto you. Another thing I should mention, in their youth, Rupa and Sanatana, they studied under Vidyavachaspati. Vidyavachaspati, he was the brother of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sanatana Goswami especially was very much devoted to his Guru Maharaj. So much so that that devotion cannot be described. They became highly accomplished scholars, and later on their scholarship was to be used in the service of Krishna. But what happened, they were studying near to Gaura, which was the capital of Bengal at that time, of Bengal. Gaura means West Bengal. They were living there in their maternal uncle's house after their father died. So they were living very close to the capital, and the king of Bengal at that time, the emperor, was the Muslim Nawab Hussain Shah. Nawab Hussain Shah. Can you sit like this? You've heard Prabhupada say, sit properly. Sitting like this is position for passing stool only. So the Nawab, he came to hear of the good qualities of Rupa and Sanatana, and he engaged them in his service. This book shouldn't be used for it. Can you ask him not to scratch his ear with the book? It's a sacred book. It's a sacred book. So actually many great devotees were engaged in the Nawab's service. They didn't really like to, but he was a ferocious king, and he wasn't the kind of person you could say no to. Nevertheless, even though he engaged people in his service more or less by force, he rewarded them also with great riches. Sanatana Gosvami, after both Rupa and Sanatana were engaged in the service of the king, and both of them took on Muslim names. Sanatana Goswami in his government service life was known as Sakar Malik, and he was like the prime minister in the government. And Rupa Goswami was known as Dabir Khas, and he was like the finance minister. So both Rupa and Sanatana, they continued with their Vaishnava practices. They lived in the village of Ramkeli, just at the side of the capital of Gaur. And there you can see still today, the deities of Radha, Madan Mohan that were worshipped by Sanatana Goswami. And the Radha Kund and Shama Kund lakes that they excavated. But due to intimate association with the Muslims, they were rejected from Hindu society. Anyone who associated intimately with the Muslims were rejected from Hindu society at that time, because the Muslims, they were meat eaters. Specifically, they used to eat cow's meat. So Rupa and Sanatana considered themselves to be very fallen. So they were living at Ramakeli, but they were always thinking of Lord Chaitanya when they could go to see him. But due to their government responsibilities, they could not. And then they got the news that Lord Chaitanya had taken sannyas. When they heard that, they fainted. They thought, now we will never get the chance to see him. He's taken sannyas, he's gone away. But at this time, they heard a divine voice saying, don't worry, Lord Chaitanya will soon come here. So, from time to time, Rupa and Sanatana would send letters to Lord Chaitanya, expressing their devotion to him. And after Lord Chaitanya had lived in Puri for 5 years, he decided to go to Vrindavan. There were 2 ways to go to Vrindavan at that time, from Puri. Mostly everyone would go, of course, by walking. I'd have to go by walking. It's a long walk, more than 2,000 kilometers. So most people would go from Puri north up to Bengal, where they would reach the Ganga. Then they would go west along the Ganga, along the bank of the Ganga, until they came to Prayag, where the Yamuna meets the Ganga. Then they would follow the path of the Yamuna to Vrindavan. The other way to go is more direct route, but very difficult route, through the mountains and forests. So Lord Chaitanya came to Bengal, and from there he proceeded towards Ramakeli. I'll take up the story from there. They met, what happened was, Lord Chaitanya came there, but Rupa and Sanatana, they were wondering whether they should go to meet him or not. They were wondering whether or not to meet him. Of course, they very much wanted to meet him, but they were considering the implications of that. The consequences, because it might not be, it might not look proper. After all, they were serving under the ferocious Muslim ruler. He might be very suspicious if they met Lord Chaitanya. He might he might inflict some punishment on Lord Chaitanya. That's what they were thinking. They were thinking like that. So what happened, after much discussion, they decided to go at night, disguised in a dressed as simple Vaishnavas, not like ministers. And in this way they went to meet Lord Chaitanya. So when they came, first of all, Nityananda saw them, and he informed Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya was there with many of his famous devotees, and they took pieces of grass between their teeth and wrapped a cloth around their neck. Wrapped a cloth. This is cloth. In Vedic culture, this is an expression of great humility, to hold straw in your teeth and wrap a cloth around your neck. So, like this, they fell down flat like rods before Lord Chaitanya. And they were weeping out of great pleasure to see Lord Chaitanya, who they'd been thinking of all these days. Weeping, crying. And also feeling great humility, because they were thinking themselves very fallen. Lord Chaitanya asked them to get up and said, "Don't worry, everything is auspicious. Everything will be good for you." They got up and humbly offered, folding their hands together, humbly offered prayers to Lord Chaitanya, saying, "All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya. All glories to the most merciful Savior of the fallen." They said that we are the lowest class of men. Nicha jati, nicha shongi. We associate with the lowest class of people. And also our activities are also of the lowest type. We feel ashamed even to stand before you. Our dear Lord, you have incarnated in this world to deliver the fallen souls. So please consider that in this world there is no one as fallen as us. You delivered Jagai and Madhai. You didn't have to do much to deliver them. They were from the Brahmana caste, and they were residents of the holy Dham of Navadvip. They never served fallen people, low-class people as we did, nor did they associate with low-class people as we did. Of course, they were very sinful, but simply by chanting the holy name, Namabhas, a dim reflection of the holy name, millions of sins are burned to ashes. Unlimited sins. Jagai and Madhai, they said your name to bless in the way of blaspheming you. But even by chanting in that way, they were delivered. But we are millions and millions of times more fallen than Jagai and Madhai. We are much more degraded, fallen and sinful than them. We are practically meat eaters because we serve meat eaters. We associate with those who are enemies of cows and brahmanas, namely Muslims. Because of our abominable activities, we are now as if bound up by our hands and neck and thrown in the ditch of material sense enjoyment, sense gratification. Ditch means gutter, drain. We are so fallen, we have no hope for deliverance. There is no one in the universe powerful enough to deliver us. Only you can save us, because you are the savior of the fallen souls. If you can save us who are so fallen and sinful, then only the strength, the power of your mercy will become famous in the world. You have come to save the most fallen, we are the most fallen. We're not even qualified to receive your mercy, but still we desire it. So please pick us up, save us, and then your mission to save the fallen will be a success. Then Lord Chaitanya, he quoted many verses from scripture to show that actually Dabyakas and Sakya Malik were not fallen. Because even if someone is apparently fallen from the external point of view, even if he has every other qualification to be fallen, if he is a devotee of Krishna, he is the most elevated person. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "My dear Dabyakas and Sakya Malik, you are my old servants. Life after life you are my servants. From now on your names should be Rupa and Sanatana. Now please don't be so humble anymore, because you are breaking my heart. You wrote me many affectionate letters expressing your humility, from which I could understand what are your feelings. So I sent an instruction to you by letter. I wrote one verse, that if a woman has a paramour, you know what that means, paramour? It means a married woman has a secret lover. If a woman has a paramour, she performs her household duties even more carefully, so that no one will suspect her. That although externally she appears to be devoted to her husband, internally she's always thinking of her paramour. In other words, Lord Chaitanya was instructing Rupa and Sanatana, you perform your duties in the government as if you are very attached to that, but actually you should always think of me. Lord Chaitanya said, no one knows why I have come here to this village of Ramakeli. Everyone is asking, why has Lord Chaitanya come here? I have come here only to see you, two brothers. So it is very good that you have come here to see me. Now you go home, he told them, and do not worry, Krishna will deliver you very soon. You two brothers have been my servants life after life. So then Lord Chaitanya asked all the devotees to bless Rupa and Sanatana, who fell at the lotus feet of all the great devotees there. So many great devotees were there. Nityananda, Advaita, Akrishva, Haridas, Damodar, and so on. Lord Chaitanya then blessed Rupa and Sanatana by putting his hands on their heads. His hands on their heads. Then Rupa and Sanatana placed the Lord's lotus feet on their heads. And Lord Chaitanya told Rupa and Sanatana to touch the feet of all the great devotees, who were very happy and congratulated the brothers for receiving the Lord's mercy. Rupa and Sanatana, before they went home, they submitted a proposal to Lord Chaitanya. He said that the ruler of Bengal, Nawab Hussain Shah, he has some respect for you, but there is no need for you to stay here any longer. Your mission here is now complete. You please leave this place now. No, you please leave this place now. The king has some respect. You should leave this place. The king may have some regard for you, but after all, he is a meat-eater and a Muslim, and he is naturally inimical to cows and brahmanas. So he cannot be trusted. You please leave this place soon. Also, Sanatana Gosvami said, of course, Sanatana was the minister in the government, so he understood all the different considerations. He was very, very expert at understanding different situations. So he advised Lord Chaitanya, there is no need to go to Vrindavan with so many people, because Lord Chaitanya was traveling, so many people were following him. Sanatana Goswami said, it is not actually fitting to go to Vrindavan accompanied by so many people. Then the atmosphere of Vrindavan cannot properly be relished in the association of a big pompous crowd. So Lord Chaitanya left and he set out for Vrindavan, but after one day he considered Sanatana Goswami's proposal and he gave up his plan to go to Vrindavan at that time, and he returned to Puri. Meanwhile, Rupa and Sanatana were staying in Ramakeli and considering how to get free from their material bondage. And for this purpose, they appointed two brahmanas to perform some ritualistic activities so as to help them get free from material life, giving the brahmanas plenty of money for doing this. So the brahmanas chanted the Hare Krishna mantra and performed religious activities so that the two brothers could very quickly attain to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. Rupa Goswami was easily able to quit his service. He was able to escape easily. He simply went home and there was no major obstacle. But for Sanatana Goswami it wasn't so easy. For the sake of helping Sanatana Goswami to escape from Rupa Goswami left 10,000 gold coins in the care of a local merchant. Local merchant, trader, businessman. But Sanatana Goswami felt that he had some obligation to the Nawab, so he didn't just get up and run away like that. He felt, because the Nawab, he was actually very fond of Sanatana, and he considered him as just like a younger brother. So Sanatana felt that this relationship was a bind on him, that he couldn't just walk out on it. So he thought, well, if the Nawab becomes upset with me, and then I'll be free of this obligation. So Sanatana Goswami sent information to the court, I am sick, I cannot attend the royal court. But actually he was just sitting in his home, discussing Srimad Bhagavatam with Brahmanas. Many Brahmanas used to come and visit Rupa and Sanatana because they were great patrons of Brahmanas, and they would discuss scriptures with them. So like this, Sanatana was sitting at home discussing Srimad Bhagavatam with 20 to 30 Brahmana scholars. But when after some days the Sanatana did not come to the court, the Nawab sent the royal physician to check on his condition. What's wrong with him? What's he so sick? How is that? The doctor came back with the report, there's nothing wrong with his health. So one day, unexpectedly, the Nawab came into the house of Sanatana Goswami, accompanied by one other person. And Sanatana and all the Brahmanas stood up to offer respect to the king. The Nawab was upset. He said that I sent my doctor to you. He said that you're completely healthy, but you're reporting that you're sick. I've given all the responsibility of the government to you, and you're just sitting here at home. You're spoiling all my activities. I completely depend on you. What is in your mind? Please tell me clearly. Sanatana frankly told him, please do not expect any more service from me. You appoint someone else in my place. And Nawab became very angry and told Sanatana that your elder brother is acting just like a dacoit. By saying his elder brother, the Nawab was referring to himself. He said, your elder brother has killed many living beings in Bengal and in this way destroyed it. And now you are sitting here and destroying me and all my plans. So he was speaking angrily, but in the same way, half jokingly. And Sanatana replied in the same way. Sanatana said, you are the independent king of Bengal. Whoever makes some mistake, you punish them accordingly. Hearing this, the Nawab stood up and went back to his home. And understanding that Sanatana wanted to run away and leave his service, he ordered him to be arrested. Then again, the Nawab came to see Sanatana, and trying to bring him back in his, trying to bring him round, so trying to gain his, trying to gain his attention again. The Nawab said that I'm going to Orissa now. I'm going there to attack Orissa. You come with me. Sanatana was firm in his resolve and spoke back to the king that you are going to Orissa to give pain to the Supreme Lord. Therefore I am unable to go with you. So the Nawab ordered that Sanatana be chained up and kept in prison. At this time, Rupa Goswami got news that Lord Chaitanya had left Puri again and was going towards Vrindavan again. So he wrote a letter to Sanatana saying that we two brothers, namely Rupa and Anupam, we are setting out to meet Lord Chaitanya. We are leaving. We are going. So he told Sanatana, somehow or other you get free from that situation and come and join us. Rupa Goswami wrote that I have left 10,000 gold coins with a local trader. Use that money and get out quick. Rupa Goswami had confidence that Sanatana Goswami, being expert in politics and diplomacy, would find some way to get out. So then what happened? Sanatana Goswami spoke to the jail keeper and started praising him. He told him that you are a very saintly person. You see, even in that culture, to be called a saintly person was considered a compliment. It's a very different culture to the kind of culture going on here. And he said, you are a great scholar of the Quran. You can just imagine the jail keeper with his long beard, simple man. He's not going to be a very educated person, but that was considered a great compliment. Oh, you're a great scholar. In this way, he puffed him up and made him feel very favorable towards Sanatana Goswami, so that he could give his message. He said that in the scriptures it said that if you can cause someone to be liberated, that is, you also become liberated. Of course, that means if the Guru liberates the disciple, he becomes liberated he also naturally becomes liberated from material existence. But Sanatana Goswami was saying, if you liberate me, that's also liberation. You can liberate me from prison, then you'll also get liberated. In other words, because the jail keeper was not actually a great scholar of the scriptures, he could easily be cheated. So giving different kinds of arguments, he said that, you remember previously I used to favor you and help you in so many ways when I was Prime Minister. Sanatana said, now I'm in some difficulty, so you please reciprocate by letting me out of prison. Of course, he didn't expect that simply by asking the jail keeper, please let me go, that he would say, okay, and just let him go. But just to make his case more strong, he said that here are 5,000 gold coins, and if you let me out, you can keep these also. Mm-hmm. So the main thing is that you'll get some pious result from letting me go, but you'll also get some money, so you'll gain in both ways. So the jail keeper said, yes, I'd like to let you go, but I'm afraid of the government, because obviously if he let Sanatana go, he was going to be punished, maybe after his life. Sanatana was very expert. He said, don't worry, there's no danger. The Nawab is not here. When he comes, you simply tell him that I let Sanatana out to go to the bank of the Ganga to pass stool, and then he simply jumped in the Ganga and he had his chains on and he drowned. I looked for him for a long time, but I couldn't find him. And Sanatana told the jail keeper that you don't worry that people will doubt you, because I won't come back here. I will go to Makkah. I'll become a darabesh. I'll become a mendicant, a Muslim mendicant. So he could see that the jail keeper was still afraid, because he thought, well, even if I get 5,000 gold coins, he won't be much use to me if my head is cut off. So seeing this, Sanatana just brought the coins, stacked them in front of him, 7,000 gold coins. And the jail keeper became overcome by greed. And that night, he cut the chains on Sanatana's that were tying him up and got him across the Ganga. So Sanatana didn't go on the main road, but he went through the forest paths, and eventually he came to a hilly area. Yeah, lots of hills, which he knew he would not be able to cross without some help. Sanatana was traveling with one servant, Ishan. So when he came to this was actually the border of Bengal. This is the end of Bengal, where the hilly Bengal is very flat land. Where the hills begin, that's the end of Bengal. So there he met one landlord of that area. And generally the tradition was that landlords, they would give some facility to travelers. But this landlord happened to be a great rascal, because many travelers, they used to carry valuables with them, just like today. And he knew that many people would come asking for help to get through the hills. So he had it worked out that if someone went into the hills, someone was heading towards the hills and they never came back, no one would question it, because it would not be surprising if anyone went into the forest path in the hills and were killed by tigers or lions or bears or boars or snakes or so many creatures of that. Yeah. So this landlord, he kept one expert astrologer with him, and they made a good team. The astrologer would, by calculation, he would find out whether or not this person had some money, some good amount of money. And if they did, the landlord would simply kill them and take the money and give a commission to the astrologer. So be careful of astrologers. So Sanatana Gosvami asked for some help. You please help me to get across this hilly land. Meanwhile, the astrologer was saying, this man's got 8 gold coins. He's a good one. So the landlord was very happy to see him. Yes, please come here. You must be very tired. We'll look after you. Don't worry. Here's you take your bath. Here's all facility. Here's some food you can cook. So Sanatana went to the river and took his bath. It had been 2 days since he had escaped, and he'd just been walking continuously. He hadn't eaten anything. So he cooked and he ate. That was the system in those days. They didn't have restaurants. Especially Brahmanas, they would only cook for themselves. They wouldn't take food from other people. However, Sanatana, he was, after all, the expert politician. He always used to And a politician, why they're expert, they always see the different nuances of any situation, the hidden implications. Mm-hmm. And he thought, why is this landlord giving me so much respect? Ishan called his servant. I think you have something valuable with you, is it? Ishan said, yes, I have 7 gold coins. So Sanatana chastised him like anything. He said, you are carrying our death with us. He took those gold coins and brought them to the landlord. He said, here are 7 gold coins I was carrying with me. You please take them, and just for the sake of pious activity, get me across that land. I am an escaped government prisoner. I cannot go on the main road. So the landlord said that I already knew that you had 8 gold coins with you. I was going to kill you and take it. It's very kind that you have voluntarily given it to me. No, then I won't have to be involved in sinful activity. I'm very satisfied with you. I'll not take those coins from you, but just to perform a pious activity, I'll get you across that land. But Sanatana said, if you don't take this money, someone else will kill me to get it. So please protect my life by taking this money. So the landlord gave Sanatana Goswami 4 watchmen to accompany him, and they guided Sanatana through the forest for the whole night and brought him to the other side of the hilly area. Then Sanatana said to Ishan, I think you still have some balance left from those gold coins. Ishan said, I still have 1 coin. Sanatana said, take it, go home. Take it and go home. So Sanatana, now all he had was a water pot in his hand and a torn quilt to cover his body. Quilt means like a bed cover, like a chadar, something like that. Kanta, it's you don't have such a thing here. It's something that poor people in Bengal use. It's made from old torn clothing. They take all the bits of torn clothing and sew it all together and make one shawl or chadar. That we were singing in that song about the 6 Goswamis. Kopina Kanta Shrito. So that Kanta means this special kind of shawl. So now Sanatana was walking on without any anxiety. Now I'm safe, I'm out of the kingdom of the Nawab, he can never reach me here. I have no money that anyone's going to harass or kill me for. I have no deceptive servant to get me into trouble. Now the only thing I have to do is find Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was walking in the direction of Varanasi, because he knew that Lord Chaitanya had set out for Vrindavan, and anyone who goes to Vrindavan from Puri must go through Varanasi. Whether you go through the forest or whether you go via Bengal, you have to go through Varanasi. So all day Sanatana Goswami walked, and that evening he arrived in a place called Hazipur. And in that town he sat down in a garden. In that town, in Hazipur, he sat down in a garden. So it just so happened that in that town was a man called Srikant, who was Sanatana Goswami's sister's husband, and he had been given 300,000 gold. He was a servant of the emperor. 300,000. He had been given 300,000 gold coins for purchasing horses for the emperor. Horses, yes. Horses were very valuable. They were for war, for keeping power. Horses were very important. If you had good horses, you could have a good army. So Srikant was stationed in that place, and he was buying horses and sending them to the emperor. So in the evening, Srikant was sitting in a high place, just like on the veranda of his house. And in the garden below, he saw a person. He thought, I recognize that person. Who is that? He said, it looks just like my brother-in-law. My wife's brother. It looks just like my wife's brother. But how is that possible? He's the prime minister of the king of Bengal. So how could he be sitting in a garden here, dressed in these ragged clothes? But at night, he understood. There's something unusual here. So at night, he took one servant and went to see who is that person. And when they met, he saw that, yes, it's my brother-in-law. So they discussed so many different things. You can imagine when relatives meet, they discuss they were relatives, and they were both in government service, so they discussed so many different things. And Sanatana Goswami told him the whole story of how he was imprisoned and again released. And Srikant said to Sanatana, you stay here for at least 2 days. Give up all this dirty dress and I'll give you, you can get dressed nicely and appear just like a gentleman. Sanatana Goswami said, I'm not staying here even a moment more. Why have I spent, I'm already here so much time, I'm going right now. You help me to get across the Ganga. I'm going right now. But Srikant managed to restrain him for a short time and said, but before you go, you take one blanket, I'll give you one nice blanket. So out of affection he gave him a nice woolen blanket, and Sanatana went off again. Departed again. Within a few days he arrived at Varanasi. As soon as he arrived, mostly when people arrive in Varanasi, they'll take a bath in the Ganga like this, as their first activity. But Sanatana's first activity was to inquire, has Chaitanya Mahaprabhu come here? He was very relieved to hear, yes, he is here. The unusual sannyasi from Bengal. He chants and dances in the streets. We never heard of any sannyasi doing that before. In Varanasi there are so many sannyasis, but none of them sing and dance and cry in the streets. Everyone was talking about Lord Chaitanya. Some were praising him, saying, oh, he's so beautiful and so full of transcendental ecstasy. And some, few, the followers of the Mayavadi sannyasis, they were criticizing him, that he's a bogus sannyasi. What is all this singing and dancing? Sannyasis aren't supposed to do that. So Lord Chaitanya at this time was living in the house of Chandrasekhar. And Sanatana Goswami came there and just sat outside. So Lord Chaitanya, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he knows everything. He's the Super Soul. So he told Chandrasekhar that you go outside, you will find there's one Vaishnav sitting there, call him in. So Chandrasekhar went outside the door. He didn't see any Vaishnav, so he came back and saw and told Lord Chaitanya, there's no Vaishnav there. So Lord Chaitanya said, is there anyone there? And Chandrasekhar said, there's some dirty Muslim mendicant. So Lord Chaitanya said, bring him here. He said, so Chandrasekhar went and said, oh Fakir, Daravish. I don't know, that's Muslim, it doesn't. He said, oh Muslim mendicant. It doesn't sound proper to me. You see, the Hindu people, they would never call a Muslim into their home. Even that he was sitting outside the door, probably according to Hindu ritual at that time, they'd probably want to clean the doorway with cow dung. See, even that, you see, the Muslim was sitting in the doorway, so according to Hindu tradition, they would have to clean that place with cow dung to purify it, because the Muslims are so much contaminated because they kill cows. So it was astonishing to Chandrasekhar that why would Lord Chaitanya call a Muslim mendicant into his home? But anyway, he obeyed Lord Chaitanya's instruction, and went and called this Muslim mendicant. Please come in. The Lord is calling you. So Lord Sanatana Goswami was extremely happy to hear this, and he entered into the home. But when he went into the courtyard, Lord Chaitanya saw him, and Lord Chaitanya could no longer restrain himself, and Lord Chaitanya immediately got up and ran up to him and embraced him. So when Lord Chaitanya embraced Sanatana Goswami, Lord Chaitanya was overcome with ecstatic love. And when Sanatana Goswami felt the touch of Lord Chaitanya, he was also overcome with ecstatic love. And in a faltering voice, he said to Lord Chaitanya, please my Lord, do not touch me. And embracing each other, shoulder to shoulder, Lord Chaitanya and Sanatana Goswami just cried and cried and cried. Chandrasekhar was very surprised. How is it that Lord Chaitanya is feeling such ecstasy embracing a Muslim? And Lord Chaitanya took Sanatana by the hand and sat him down next to him. He sat him in an elevated place. You see, Lord Chaitanya, because he was sannyasi and guru, he was given an exalted place to sit. And he gave this apparent Muslim also an exalted place to sit. And out of great affection, he started to wipe the dust from the body of Sanatana Goswami with his own hand. And Sanatana said, please, don't touch me, I'm so fallen. But Lord Chaitanya said that I am touching you so that I can become purified. Because your devotional to Krishna is so powerful that you can purify the whole universe. And Lord Chaitanya quoted many verses from scripture to show how the Vaishnavas are so elevated. Then Lord Chaitanya said, please hear me, Sanatan. Krishna is very merciful and he is the savior of the fallen. Krishna has saved you from the hell known as Maharorav. That is a hell that meat eaters go to. Krishna is like a great ocean of mercy and his activities are very deep. Sanatana Goswami said, I don't know who is Krishna, but I know that you have saved me. Lord Chaitanya asked Sanatan how he had been released from the prison. And Sanatan described everything in detail from beginning to end. So Lord Chaitanya gave news of Rupa and Anupam that he had met them and they have now gone on to Vrindavan. Lord Chaitanya told Sanatan that I met your two brothers Rupa and Anupam and they have gone on to Vrindavan. Then Sanatana Goswami Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had Sanatan introduced to Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar. Tapan Mishra invited Sanatan to lunch, and Lord Chaitanya told Sanatan to go and get a shave, because Muslims, they have beards. So Sanatan appeared like a Muslim. Then Lord Chaitanya called Chandrasekhar and told Chandrasekhar that make sure he changes his dress also, because he was dressed like a Muslim. Just like when people join our movement, they may look like Westerners, but when they join, we dress them in a different kind of dress. So they no longer look like Russians or Americans, but they look like messengers from Vaikuntha. So Chandrasekhar saw that Sanatan got shaved, he brought him to take bath in the Ganga, and then he brought him some new clothes. Here in the purport, Prabhupada said that Sanatana Goswami looked like a hippie, because he had a long beard. But Sanatan, he didn't accept the new cloth from Chandrasekhar. So Lord Chaitanya was happy to hear that he didn't want nice new cloth. So Lord Chaitanya went to take lunch with Tapan Mishra at midday. And Lord Chaitanya wanted Sanatan to take lunch with him, but Tapan Mishra said, let him wait, he's got something to do now. Afterwards, I'll give him your remnants. That's even better. Then Tapan Mishra also wanted to give Sanatana Goswami some new cloth, but Sanatan said, if you want to give me some cloth, please give me some old cloth. Tapan Mishra gave Sanatana Goswami an old dhoti, and Sanatan ripped it up to make 2 sets of cloth, 2 sets of kopin underwear, and 2 sets of just some cloth to wrap around, like a short. Then there was one person who we find in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, who is called the Maharashtrian Brahmana. There's one person in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya called the Maharashtrian Brahmana. Maharashtrian means from Maharashtra, which is in one place in India. And although he features in several of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, his name is never given. He's just called the Maharashtrian Brahmana. So this Maharashtrian Brahmana, who was also living at Varanasi, Lord Chaitanya introduced Sanatana Goswami to him, and Sanatana Goswami, immediately the Brahmana invited Sanatana Goswami that as long as you stay in Varanasi, you come to my place and I will feed you every day. But Sanatana said, I will practice madhukari. Madhukari means the process of begging a little food from different houses. This is a practice adopted by saintly people, so that they do not put a burden on any particular one person. At the same time, they don't become entangled in material attachment by being attached to good meals in one place. So Lord Chaitanya was very happy to see that Sanatana was so renounced. Even though he had been the opulent prime minister of the emperor, now he didn't want any new clothes and just some very skimpy clothes, and he was avoiding eating good food. But still Lord Chaitanya kept on looking at the woolen blanket that had been given to him by Srikant. Kept on looking at it, and Lord Sanatana thought that Lord Chaitanya doesn't like this. So next time, when he went to the Ganga to take a bath, he saw there one old sadhu, one saintly person from Bengal. Sanatana said to him, because the Bengali sadhu, he had a kantha. That I was telling. Kantha means some old, cheap, not very high quality quilt. So Sanatana said, Why don't you give me that kanta and I'll give you this nice woolen blanket? So the sadhu felt offended. He felt offended, insulted. He said that you appear to be a very high-class person. Then why are you joking with me like this? He thought he was joking as if to say, hey, look at your kanta, it's so useless. Sanatana said, I'm not joking, please exchange one for the other. So Sanatana Gosvami walked out of the house with this expensive woolen blanket. You can imagine it must have been the very best quality because it was given by his brother-in-law who was very rich also. But when he came back, there was no more woolen blanket, there was only this old kanta. So Lord Chaitanya asked, where's that nice woolen blanket you have? And Sanatana Goswami explained. So Lord Chaitanya said, yes, I was thinking about this, that Krishna already cut all your material attachments, your home, your position, your money, your power. So why should he let you remain attached to a woolen blanket? A good physician, he completely cures the disease. He doesn't allow a little bit to remain. A woolen blanket that's worth 3 gold coins and going house to house and begging. What will people think about? They'll simply joke at you, and you'll lose all your spiritual strength also. So Sanatana agreed and said that it's true. Krishna has saved me from material life. By his desire, my last traces of my material disease are now gone. Lord Chaitanya, being very happy with Sanatana Goswami, bestowed his mercy upon him. And by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, Sanatana was empowered to ask questions to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya told Sanatana Goswami all about Lord Krishna's position, form and sweetness, about the science of devotional service and the tasting of rasa, science of rasa. Sanatana Goswami put a straw in his mouth and fell at Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, holding on to them. He said that I'm of low caste, I associate with low-class people, I'm the most fallen and miserable. I've spent my life fallen in the well of grossly sinful activities. I know nothing about what is good for me and what is not good. Generally, people call me a pandit, a learned scholar, and I'm so foolish that I believe them. Very mercifully, you have saved me. But now that I've been saved from this materialistic way of life, please tell me, what is my duty now? What should I do? Then Sanatana asked, who am I, and why am I subject to the threefold miseries of material life? This is Sanatana Goswami's classic question. That is the proper question that should be asked in the human form of life. It is the proper question that should be asked to a guru. Sanatana Goswami said, if I don't know this, then how can there be any benefit? How can there be any gain for me? How can there be any auspiciousness? How can there be any welfare for me? The threefold miseries are those adhyatmic, those caused by the mind and body and mind. Adhibhotic, those caused by other living beings. And adhidaivik, those caused by the demigods, are manifested as natural disturbances. Sanatana Goswami said that I do not know what is the goal of life or how to attain it. I don't even know how I should begin to ask about these things. So you, out of your own kindness, you please explain these things to me. The Lord Chaitanya said that you have received Lord Krishna's full mercy. You know all these things. You're not subject to the threefold miseries because you're liberated. You possess Lord Krishna's potency. You know all about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and the elevated emotional stages of Krishna consciousness. Still, it is the nature of a saintly person to inquire about these things for the benefit of others, and thus you are doing this. Lord Chaitanya told Sanatana that you are a fit person to spread Krishna consciousness. Therefore, I shall explain all the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to you gradually. Just hear it from me. And in this way, Lord Chaitanya explained the science of Krishna consciousness to Sanatana Goswami for 30 days. And these teachings to Sanatana Goswami have been summarized in several chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I think over 4 chapters. And within these chapters, all the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is summarized. if anyone wants to understand actually what is the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, they should study this. This has all been explained in the Prabhupada's classic book, The Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya started his instruction to Sanatana Gosvami with another classic instruction. Jiva Sharup Hoy Krishna Nityadas. The nature of the living being, of the eternal living being, is that he is the eternal servant of Krishna, the constitutional position. Lord Chaitanya explained that the Jiva, the living soul, is one of the energies of Krishna, the marginal energy. And Lord Chaitanya went on to explain the different energies of Krishna. He described the relative importance of the different spiritual paths of karma, jnana, yoga and bhakti by telling the story of the astrologer Sarvagya, in which he demonstrated that karma, jnana and yoga are useless for attaining the actual goal of life, that one has to take to bhakti. In all the points that Lord Chaitanya made, he backed up with elaborate quotes from scripture. Lord Chaitanya showed that the aim of all the scriptures is to understand Krishna and to engage in his devotional service, pure unmotivated devotional service. Very systematically Lord Chaitanya explained point by point, explaining each point elaborately. Then why Krishna is the goal of the scriptures and why he should be served, Lord Chaitanya explained by describing that Krishna's constitutional position is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why he is understood to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what it means to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya explained. You should listen, don't play, listen. Then Lord Chaitanya went on to explain about the different forms and expansions and avatars of the Supreme Lord. He explained this in great detail. He explained the situation of the spiritual world, the different forms of the Lord in different Vaikuntha planets. And above Vaikuntha, the Goloka, how there is the Goloka planet. And the opulence of Vaikuntha was compared with the rich sweetness of Vrindavan. In describing this, Lord Chaitanya became absorbed in ecstasy. And forgetting himself, he went on and on describing the incredible sweetness of Krishna and Vrindavan. In the course of describing the different avatars of Krishna, Lord Chaitanya came to describe the avatar for Kali Yuga, that he's just like Krishna, but he's not the same color as Krishna, and that he propagates the Sankirtan movement. So he was describing all the different kinds of avatars one by one. Sanatana Gosvami just interrupted and said, "Just wait a minute, can we get this just correct?" He was describing all the different avatars and their features one by one, but when he described this one, Sanatana Goswami interrupted and said, "Could you please just repeat that and clarify that? That the avatar for Kali Yuga is just like Krishna, but he's not the same color as Krishna, and he propagates the Sankirtan movement." In this way he wanted Lord Chaitanya to clarify that Lord Chaitanya himself was the Supreme Personality of God. But Lord Chaitanya just avoided him. Just give up all these tricks, and now let's go on to the next subject. So, Lord Chaitanya explained all the subjects of Krishna consciousness within the three categories: Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojan. Sambandha means to understand what is the constitutional position of God, what is the constitutional position of the Jiva, and that we are Jiva, and what is our relationship with God. Abhideya means acting in that relationship by performing devotional service. And Prayojan means attaining the goal of life, pure love of Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya also elaborately, he described all these in great detail. He described in great detail the means of attaining love of Krishna. He described the two kinds of jivas, that means eternally conditioned and eternally liberated, and how karma, jnana and yoga, if they don't have any touch of devotional service, of bhakti, they're all completely useless. Lord Chaitanya described what is the meaning of surrender that Lord Krishna had spoken of in the Bhagavad Gita, and showed how following the rules and regulations of the Varnashram system without worshipping Krishna is useless and you simply go to hell. Lord Chaitanya explained about the mercy of Krishna and how Krishna manifests his mercy upon the conditioned souls by manifesting externally as the spiritual master and by guiding the devotee from within the heart. Lord Chaitanya explained the development of Krishna consciousness according to one's faith and how devotees are full of all good qualities and what those qualities are. Lord Chaitanya elaborated on the importance of association with devotees and the importance of giving up bad association. He described the two divisions of sadhana bhakti. One is called sadhana bhakti, means the practice of devotional service. One is called Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, that means according to rules and regulations. And the other is called Raga Anuga sadhana bhakti, that means when one transcends the rules and regulations and simply follows in the footsteps of liberated souls. Lord Chaitanya described the 64 branches of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, and Lord Chaitanya stressed among these 64 activities that 5 are particularly important. What are those 5? Who can say? Who can say all 5? Who can? Association with devotees, hearing Shiva and Bhagavatam. Living in, worshipping deity, and? No, you only got 4 so far. You said chanting, no?
Chanting Hare Krishna, Shiva and
Bhagavatam.
Living in holy places, associating
with devotees.
And worshipping devotees.
Alright, so these are the 5 most important. Lord Chaitanya also explained the 9 prominent methods of devotional service and stressed that among them, chanting the holy names of Krishna is the most important. Lord Chaitanya went on to explain also about the qualities of Krishna, the qualities of Radharani, and the meaning of renunciation, true and false. And he also, after this, after explaining so many things, Sanatana Gosvami asked he had a special request from Lord Chaitanya. He said, "My dear Lord, I heard that previously you explained the famous Atma Rama verse from Srimad Bhagavatam to Sarvam Bhattacharya in 18 different ways." So Sanatana Goswami asked Lord Chaitanya to explain that again to him, as he would like to hear that. Because to explain a verse in 18 different ways, it's not an ordinary thing. Those who are scholars, they can appreciate these things. So Lord Chaitanya said, "I can't exactly remember what I said at that time, but anyway, I'll try and explain it." So Lord Chaitanya, he started explaining each word and then combined all the different words. And with great elaboration, he ended up explaining the verse in 61 different ways. And then finally, considering that Atma can refer to any Jiva, the word Atma in this verse can refer to any Jiva, and that every Jivatma is attracted to Krishna. And because there are unlimited Jivatmas, therefore this verse can be explained in an unlimited number of ways, and every way is explained in relationship to pure devotional service to Krishna. So after enlightening Sanatana Goswami in all the truths of devotional service, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Sanatana to write books on the science of devotional service. See, at that time, Lord Chaitanya was just preaching this particular path of devotional service for the first time, and that he knew that such an elaborate teachings, to be properly established in human society, there must be books written. If his teachings were to be established in human society, books are essential. And that even if there are so many deviations which are practically inevitable, the books remain there as the standard. So Lord Chaitanya taught Sanatana Goswami with the particular purpose that Sanatana Goswami would take his instructions and elaborately describe them in books. Lord Chaitanya taught Sanatana Goswami and he taught Rupa Goswami with a specific purpose that they would write books based on his teachings. Lord Chaitanya taught both Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami with the idea that they would write books based on his instructions. And taking the basic ideas given by Lord Chaitanya the six Goswamis researched all the scriptures for the purpose of establishing the actual religious principle and wrote books on this basis. Now, Lord Chaitanya also told Sanatana Goswami particularly to write books, and he particularly instructed Sanatana Goswami to write a book on the proper practices and behavior for devotees, to explain what it means to be a devotee. How does a devotee live his practical daily life? So Lord Chaitanya explained all these things to Sanatana Goswami in great detail, beginning with rising early and brushing the teeth. And that was later compiled by Sanatana Goswami with the help of Gopal Bhatta Goswami into the classic compendium of Vaishnava behavior called Hari Bhakti Vilas. Lord Chaitanya also told Sanatana to Rupa Goswami also gives instruction to reveal the lost holy places of Vrindavan. Because when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Vrindavan, it was known as the holy place of Krishna's pastimes, but it wasn't properly being maintained. So many holy places connected with Krishna's pastimes were lost. That means that people didn't, nowadays of course we know, but in those days people didn't know where the holy place is connected with. For instance, where is the place where Krishna chastised the Kaliya serpent? Where is the place where Krishna performed the rasa dance? All these things were lost. So by researching the ancient scriptures, Rupa and Sanatana, with the help of other devotees, rediscovered so many different holy places. They established temples in Vrindavan, and they wrote books explaining the special significance of intimate pastimes within Vrindavan. Especially Rupa Goswami described this last point of the intimate relationships within Vrindavan. Therefore, Rupa Goswami is known as Rasa Acharya, because through his books, he taught about the intimate understandings of rasa. So these activities, these were particularly taken up by the six Goswamis, especially Rupa and Sanatana, under the instruction of Lord Chaitanya. Like I said, they were helped by other devotees also. Just like even before Rupa and Sanatana went to Vrindavan, other devotees such as Lokanath Goswami, Bhugarbha Goswami, Subudhi Rai, they had already gone there and they helped they'd already found some of the holy places and they helped to gather the different scriptures that were used for research. Bhugarbha Goswami, Lokanath Goswami, Subudhi Rai, Raghav Goswami. And even after, in the generation just after the six Goswamis, there was another Goswami, Narayan Bhatta Goswami, who discovered so many places of Krishna's pastimes. Because at every millimeter in Vrindavan, every inch, every grain of dust is connected with some pastime of Krishna. Krishna has unlimited pastimes. And actually these points of philosophy that Lord Chaitanya spoke of in detail to Sanatana Goswami didn't himself compile them into a book. Not all the points. He wrote philosophical books also, but the philosophy of Krishna consciousness was very systematically described by Jiva Goswami, who was the nephew of Rupa and Sanatana. So the important books that Sanatana Goswami wrote is Hari Bhakti Vilas, describing daily behavior of devotees, observance of different festivals, installation of deities, and various points of Vaishnava behavior. Another very important book that Sanatana Goswami wrote is the Brihad Bhagavatam Rita, which explains the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam in two sections. The first section describes the different levels of devotees, beginning from devotees whose devotion is mixed with karma and jnana, and then going up to describe devotees in the different rasas, from Shanta Ras, and describing that the topmost devotees are the gopis. The second half of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita describes the glories of Golok by describing the different gradations within the material world and beyond the material world and up to Golok Vrindavan. Other books by Sanatana Gosvami, there's the Dasham Charit, which describes the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. The pastimes of Krishna within Vrindavan.
Name of the book.
Dasham Charit.
Dasham.
Otherwise known as Krishna Lila Stava. What other books are there? There's 3 in this one. There's one other. Oh yeah, of course. There's also his. There's his Dasham Tippani, which is his commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Which is
Commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Dasham Tippani. Dasham means the 10th. It literally means 10th. And Tippani means commentary. Alright, I'm going to finish there. There's plenty more to say, but I'm not going to say any more about this now. I'm just going to take, if there's anyone has any general questions about Krishna consciousness.
there is an opinion, there is a tendency that
we don't follow opinions.
Okay.
Alright, just before you say anything, I'm going to say we don't follow opinions. Translate that. We don't follow opinions. We follow Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So whatever this opinion is, there are many opinions. But the path given by Guru, Sadhu and Shastra is one only. Everything that we need to know about Krishna consciousness has been explained to us by Srila Prabhupada. We don't need any different opinion. Acharya Mata Jai Shri Mata Shah, that in Chaitanya Charitamrita is described that whatever opinion is given by the Acharya, that is correct. Manda Jai Mata Lange Sheto Asha, and whoever doesn't follow that is simply useless. We've seen so many different opinions in our Krishna conscious movement. So many different ideas that may seem to be so wonderful, some wonderful new idea. And in course of time they're all shown to be completely useless. And meanwhile the movement goes on with chanting, dancing, taking prasadam, all these things. We get book devotees coming, I just got some new book, very interesting book written by Professor Useless, or whatever his name is. Very intelligent, very wonderful book. These people, they're not pure devotees. They all have the 4 defects of conditioned soul, which are illusioned, imperfect senses, make mistakes and have the tendency to cheat. So whatever they say may sound very nice, as long as we don't have full faith in Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Those who have full faith in Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, they hear, I just heard some really good idea. And they say, yes, we know, we've heard so many good ideas before. But we already got a good idea, chant Hare Krishna. Best idea that will solve all the problems. As Srila Prabhupada, who is the Acharya, wrote that all the problems will be solved, material and spiritual, by Sankirtan. This doesn't sound very logical or scientific.
It doesn't sound.
No, if you're a fool. If you're a fool with a PhD, it doesn't sound very practical to just chant Hare Krishna and all your problems will be solved. It seems much better to do some psychological and sociological analysis and find out that all your problems are caused because in your childhood your mother shouted at you or something like that. What was that I was just reading? Someone went to the psychologist.